Good morning, class. It's Mrs. E, but I'm gonna ask for some assistance for today's video. I've been feeling a little bad for my ag mechanics kids because we've been going over plant and animal stuff, and that's not the class you signed up for, I know. So my brother works for Salem Propane, and they just got this brand new truck that I got to inspect the other day, and there's some pretty awesome welds on it, and it has a very interesting engine, and so I just wanted to talk a little bit about those things today and give you something else to look at besides plant and animals. So I'm first going to come up here and show you the welds on this truck. This is a brand new truck. Gotta watch where I'm going here. And I think it's interesting on this truck, they did not buff out all the welds. Normally, you weld something together, and then if you want it to look nice, you grind it all down and smooth it out and paint over it. And sometimes you can't even really tell where the weld is. But on this truck, they left all the welds exposed, and I think it looks awesome. For those of you who are into welding, which was quite a few of you this year, I wish you could see it in person. These are some pretty impressive welding jobs here that I just wanted you to see. And I'm going to ask you today, your question for the day is, what type of welding is this? I'm not going to tell you. We did a lot of stick welding in class. You guys did a little bit of MIG welding when the MIG welder wasn't broken. And we do have that TIG welder in the shop, although we did not use it this year. So I'm going to have you tell me for your question, what type of welding do you think this is? But again, just some really awesome welds on this truck. And for those of you who are interested in welding, I know a lot of you are planning on going into it. Just keep in mind that there's so many options out there for welders today. If you are a good welder, you can pretty much work wherever you want to. And I know a lot of you really like fabrication and you're very interested in vehicle maintenance and that sort of thing. There's a lot of need still for welding in vehicle manufacturing. We tend to think, oh, everything's made of fiberglass today, and the need for welders in that area is decreasing, but that's not necessarily the case. A good welder can have a job anywhere they want and make a really decent living if this is the kind of thing you like. So just wanted you guys to see these welds on this truck. And now we're going to head up front to the engine and check out the motor.
All right, this is a 2020 Freightliner. This is actually one of two 2020 trucks that we have. The other one is a Peterbilt. Freightliner, Cummins, and Kenworth are all pretty much using the Cummins L9 diesel engine. It is a 6-cylinder diesel. This one is tuned to 350 horsepower and 1,000 foot-pounds of torque, mated to a 6-speed Allison automatic transmission. This is a 33 GVW truck. And for the most part, that class is using the Allison transmissions. They're kind of phasing out manual transmissions. You can get them, but you have to special order it. I actually prefer to drive manual, but the Allison automatic is more operator friendly for all of you guys that have no clue how to use a clutch.
Hey, some of them actually are pretty good with a clutch, but
well, most
high schoolers are not.
Can't use a clutch. So it is a 6-cylinder Cummins diesel. Produces 350 horsepower. You'll notice as I go through here, there is no brake fluid reservoir. All these trucks run on air brakes. So you have an air compressor and no fluid instead of a liquid-filled brake system. Got your power steering fluid right here. Goes right into your steering box here. This is a secondary fuel filter. You can actually visually see it. You can see the diesel fuel, and watch that filter. You'll see as it kind of plugs, it'll go up. Now this truck in particular is leased, so I don't actually do any of the maintenance on this one. I do maintenance on all the other trucks, but this truck I cannot touch. As far as the truck goes, I can work on anything propane related, but not the truck. Brand new, still have all the paint. Don't even have the paint burned off the exhaust yet. You got your air intake. Up here you have your intercooler in front of the radiator here. Your fan and fan clutch there. Excuse me.
He's got the corona.
Inhaled some dust.
Just kidding.
It's that corona dust. as I was talking, here is your air compressor. Now on the older trucks, you would have had a air compressor that ran off your belt drive. They work, they're not as good. All the new trucks use mechanical air compressors. This one is located right here, which is common on these Cummins diesels.
Where
Right
is it?
here on the left-hand side, right here.
Oh.
Usually they're starting to leak and everything else, but being brand new, it still has all its paint and no leaks. But it is mechanically driven right here through gears. But it is the L9, and right there it is. If you come over to your dipstick, your oil dipstick is here. Your transmission dipstick is there. Goes back to that Allison. And unlike your car automatic transmission, there is no lever to actually shift it. It's push buttons on the dash. We can look at that if you want. But coming over to the other side, you've got your coolant here. Easily check the coolant level with the bottle. It's clear on this truck. Kenworth and Peterbilt use a metal reservoir with a sight glass. I actually prefer this. It's a lot easier to see than the sight glass. Your air filter is right here. You cannot spray ether in a new diesel engine because they have in here what do they call it? It's an intake heater. So you can plug this truck in, but it's going to be well under 0 degrees. I've actually started these trucks in the negatives without having them plugged in, and they fire right up. New diesels, being computerized and as tuned as they are, will start when it's cold. But that is an intake heater. If you spray ether in there like you would an old diesel, you will blow it up. So you can't do that on these.
And that would be expensive.
That is, yeah, it's very expensive. You got your turbocharger here on the right-hand side of the engine. It's pretty tight, but you can see it there. Great big turbo on that. Spools up real nice. You got your air compressor up top here on your serpentine belt, and your alternator here. Washer fluid reservoir. Alternator.
We talked about those in
right
tractor
there.
safety. Okay.
And that is your pretty basic mechanics as far as this engine goes. Less than 200 miles on this truck so far. This is your air dryer. Air systems have to have right here. Right here is your air dryer. That's your air dryer filter. When that reaches 120 psi, it blows off on the bottom. Any liquid in the system blows off. Similar to, actually just like a pressure regulator and air dryer on a air compressor system that you would have in the shop. This works the same way. It's controlled electronically. It goes up to 120 psi and then releases. But that dries any water out of the system and keeps it from freezing up in the winter. Another neat thing that you guys might like that this truck is equipped with is automatic chains. If we come back here, you can actually see them better on this side. Now, this truck, being a propane truck, runs primarily in the wintertime, and so you often have poor road conditions, but you have these automatic chains that run on air. And I will start the truck and turn those on and show you how those work. The truck has to be running for these to operate, but I have a switch on the dash that I flip, and it engages these, lets the air pressure in and puts those down. As you can see on the far side there, there's a rubber wheel that those chains are mounted to, and they ride on the sidewall of the inner tire. When you're driving, it spins that, and it'll throw those chains on both sides. Now there's the air brake, or the air regulator popping off. But when you're driving, it flings those chains right there on the inner dual. It does not reach all the way to the outside. It's only on the inner dual on both sides. This truck is also equipped with a traction lock. So if I lose traction, I can engage the rear axle and lock both sides. Works real well. You can actually get these trucks in a 4-wheel drive version these days We don't have one, but it is available. As far as the transmission goes, as I was talking, all you've got is a push button. You can manually shift the gears using these arrows here. You got drive, neutral, and reverse. The automatics, with your parking brake on, it will not engage the transmission. I have to push that parking brake off, else it just flashes. It's not actually in gear. Drive is D. It's a 6-speed automatic. Over here, I have my on-spot chains. That is in the engaged position. You have to flip that cap up and put the switch up to put the chains down. You close the cap and those chains lift. You have all your gauges on the dash, very similar to your typical automobile these days. You have your tachometer, speedometer, your air pressure gauges here, secondary and primary. You got your fuel gauge. This truck has an LED depth gauge. Some trucks, the Peterbilts and the Kenworths, actually have a needle style gauge for that, but Freightliner uses this lit up gauge for your diesel exhaust fluid. Your oil pressure over here, water temperature, and transmission temperature. Pretty basic stuff. All your lights are on switches. This truck has fog lamps. Don't really have anything else to talk about on that.
And we've got a future CDL driver at the wheel. All right, that's a little bit about brand new diesel truck. Whoa, holy cow, I didn't know they were gonna do that. About jumped out of my skin there. Anyway, CDL driving, another great job to get into for those of you who really are gearheads.